So, hi, my name is Oliver Schuermann. I lead security product marketing for Juniper. Before you get too hung up on the word marketing, I've been at Juniper for almost 2 decades, running engineering teams on the system engineering side, architecture teams, et cetera. The reason I think that's relevant is about 18 months ago, I stepped into this role because Juniper Connected Security is not just a marketing message, it is a strategy for us. And we'll talk today about what that means. And I'm joined by two brilliant presenters, Crystal Portocarrero and Josh McKenzie, who will be, well, I'll let introduce themselves, but they'll kind of take you through some of the more technical content. But I'll give you some of the high level messaging, kind of take you down the weeds a little bit, give you some proof points, and then we'll kick off with Josh and team. But really what we're seeing is that the modern enterprise is having an interesting time with security, right? You have traditional perimeter-based security. It's kind of merging with traditional security models. And then the network becomes more and more important. Spoiler alert, the way we see it is that Juniper Connected Security allows you to safeguard users' applications and infrastructure by looking at everything from every point of connection. From a market perspective, we sit in a kind of a unique spot because we build both the infrastructure products as well as security products, and we've been doing this for many years now. We think about security in everything we do. So what does that mean? From a visibility and enforcement standpoint, it means we can integrate deeply into our products, which is an interesting way to look at it, but it also gives our partners a go-to-market motion, et cetera. The other piece, though, is we can do what the point players do as well, as we can rely on open standards or APIs to integrate with other infrastructure products or even other security products, as we'll talk about today. So really, that's kind of the strategy in the high-level components, and let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit. So really, there's kind of 3 pillars to this, right? Because every message has to have 3 pillars. But the way we kind of look at this is you have visibility, which is the C component here, right? Where you have to be able to see who and what's on your network everywhere in the network. And what better place to do it than the connection points, right? Getting telemetry, et cetera. We'll demonstrate some of that stuff today. But automation comes in and is very interesting as well, because I think security's had a sordid history in automation, and we have to kind of take that and solve for that. The first piece, it's like 2 sides of the coin in automation, the way I see it. You have the piece where you have to take all these things that are coming in, parse through them, figure out what's important, and give you actionable intelligence. But the reason I say actionable intelligence is because in security, you're kind of paranoid to let everything just be automated and think we're safe, because we've tried that in the past, right? But as we evolve, like machine learning and AI, which you have to say now in every presentation at least 44 times, we're getting better at that. But then protect becomes kind of your business side, right? Protect meaning streamline operations, keep your CISO out of the newspaper, stuff like that, right? So that's where we kind of see the business side of this coming in. And here I'll demonstrate our product portfolio. Yes, it's the entire product portfolio, and I'll cover off some proof points there as well. But over the past 18 months, we've been rolling this out. Like I said, as a strategy, not necessarily just an architecture. But we have what you'd expect. We have your typical next generation firewall, anything from the size of a VHS tapes or distributed branch, for those of us that remember VHS tapes, all the way up to multi-terabyte firewalls that live in the most demanding environments on the planet with like financial customers, carriers, et cetera. So we really have that range and mix. And we look at some third-party testing, you'll see that we stand up and we're resilient more than most platforms. Next, though, you'll see containerized and virtualized firewalls, which you'd expect. But then if you look on the slide, you'll see that there are routing platforms and switching platforms. We'll talk a little more about that later. But really, this is where it becomes important to be able to extend security everywhere. At the top, you'll note we have, of course, on-premise and off-premise management. And then we have our advanced threat protection, as well as our secure analytics. So, and then at the bottom, you'll notice some partners. Now, these are alliance partners that develop towards our operating system. This is interesting because we kind of have 3 types of relationships, and only one really gets on the slide here. And the reason for that is that a lot of people develop through the Junos operating system. In fact, Junos runs on, for those that don't know, run on our routing, switching, and security platforms. And for those of us that did computer science, we know write once, use many is a thing. So also, we had an API before we had a CLI, meaning that we expected our customers at the time to automate to our platforms and not to type on them. Turned out that wasn't the thing in 96, so we added a CLI which sits on top of it. But that also means that we're highly automatable, which is why we see a lot of people develop towards our platforms that we don't necessarily do code development with. Here's some proof points. So March 2019 at the RSA conference, we announced our connected security strategy. Later in the year, in August at Black Hat, we actually announced our first implementation of that, which was a service called SecondTel that is on our MX platform. The reason that's interesting is that SecondTel does things like command and control feeds off botnets, and then installs this at the hardware level, what we call the ephemeral database, to allow you to not even have to bring that traffic into your network. This does two things. It allows you to block at line rate, and your more expensive compute tax resources, like your firewalls that have to do things like decrypt traffic, more on that later, don't have to process that traffic. So that allows you to get scale, but you don't want this junk in your network anyway. Plus, you can do custom black and white lists, allowing or disallowing traffic in as well. So if you're in a vertical like higher education or maybe even government that shares information, you can quickly kind of collect that and create your own feeds. Next, in November 2019, at our customer series called Nextwork, we actually announced SecondTel on our QFX and EX switches. Now, this is slightly different because the use case is different. This will identify an infected host through our ATP cloud platform, and then take that host off the network at the port level. This means if I ever get to go to a Starbucks again, and I click on a link from the Nigerian prince or whatever, and I get infected or phished, that when I plug into the network, or hop on wireless more likely, right? I'm disallowed on that network. All the systems are updated, so even if I try to change offices or like a good user plug in somewhere else, I'm still not able to get on. You get a customized message. We can then remediate that. And then at RSA this year, we announced SecondTel on our Mist platform. Mist is a wireless company we acquired in August of 2019 that focuses on user experience. Now, we'll get into a little bit more, but one of the different things that we do as a company, we take painstaking measures to ensure we integrate platforms. You'll see a lot of competitors that grow through acquisition or inorganically, and they actually pass that acquisition tax onto the end user. Double clicking on the MX a little bit, I talked about our ability to block command and control traffic and custom black and white list at the hardware level, but we've also partnered with a company named Carrero who does DDoS detection basically not by just looking at the header of a packet, but actually by doing deep packet inspection on a stream sampling anywhere from 1,000 to 1, and making quick decisions on what to stop. We can identify and stop DDoS attacks in less than seconds. So this becomes very interesting and shows what we're capable of. And I encourage you to learn more, and we'll double click on some of these later. So I mentioned SecondTel on Mist. Mist is interesting because Mist systems focuses on user experience, as I mentioned. What I mean by that is that we've all been connected to wireless somewhere, and we ultimately say wireless sucks because there's some issue, right? So they focus on that user experience using machine learning algorithms that we can get into later as well. But from a security standpoint, which we'll try to stay on today, is that we look at user experience as more than just connectivity. So what I mean by that is it's really obvious if you get ransomware on your device because there's a phone number and you can't do anything. It's a poor experience. But if you're part of a crypto mining ring unbeknownst to you, or if you're doing some kind of other mining in the background or lateral threat prop, those are obviously things that you want to know about. So we're extending the ability to identify those types of users to our Mist platform. So this does two things. A, the wireless administrator can now be part of this, right? So if from a visual standpoint, when you click on our Mist Cloud solution platform, you'll see a map of a building or location. You'll see blue users, which are good users, and you'll see red users. And those red users you can click on, see their connectivity experience, but also have a tab for for the tab for the security side, so you can see what they've downloaded, what was exploited, etc. Also, we've announced recently encrypted traffic analysis, and we'll get into the weeds on this one today, and we'll show you a couple demos. But really, we all know that encryption is on the rise. Encryption is on the rise not only for general traffic for privacy purposes, but of course, our friends that are opposition, the bad actors, also rely on encryption to obfuscate what they're doing. So we've turned to, in the recent years, we've turned to decrypting traffic. There's a couple problems with that. First, it's computationally expensive to decrypt traffic. So continuing to throw hardware at the problem is expensive. The second piece, though, is due to privacy reasons and the way technology evolves, you may not be able to decrypt traffic, financial traffic, healthcare traffic, things that have PR information in them. We get into a lot of policy things. But then also you have standards evolving where you can't decrypt some of this traffic. So how do you then deal with that? And we're using using different algorithms, we're able to determine with a pretty high degree of success and zero false positives. We're able to look at some of this traffic and starting to identify and learn more as we go through that. Don't just believe me. We obviously work with third parties like NSS Labs. We work with NSS Labs, which last year in November said Juniper's back. From a security standpoint, they gave us the highest data center rating that was out there. I talked about that earlier, and really kind of validated where we're headed. But let's get a little bit more into the weeds. We look at things more from a design perspective, design versus evolve. And I think this picture demonstrates that really well. I think a lot of things that we've brought to market, we've built as an enterprise, has kind of been bolted together. Security is very good at that because there's been we've evolved over the years from basic web connectivity to cloud and all the different things that we've been through. You've seen point products come out. And what we mean by design versus evolved, and kind of like my first tagline here, it's not rocket science, it's just a lot of rockets. Operational simplicity becomes important and the ability to integrate. Now, every vendor says that. Why are we different? Because from an integration standpoint, we integrate our things very tightly. But the other piece is, if you look at our history, we've always done integration from with third parties, right? We were never the first in the data center, et cetera. So we don't do the vendor lock-in things you see from a lot of folks. So, and we talked about a couple of those proof points today, and Crystal and Josh will walk through some more stuff later. This is the piece that I mean from the integration perspective. 6-7 years ago now, I was the business development guy for automation. And basically, we decided that, we have this PyEZ framework and all network engineers and security engineers should become developers. We're seeing competition do this now as well. And we've seen that we can't expect these engineers to kind of be rebirthed as a developer. There's an evolution over time that will happen with automation, but really building scripts and doing those kinds of things are really harken back to what we did in the 80s and 90s with batch scripts and cron jobs. That integration has to happen at a tighter level because it has to be made easy. I'm not suggesting everything has a wizard and there isn't custom integration that shouldn't happen and that you shouldn't have access to those things. But a vendor should do everything they can to kind of integrate and build those tools together. So, really, we'll talk today a little bit about how do we reduce that complexity. A lot of stuff we have now is what we depict here is Franken IT, right? Especially in security, where we've kind of bolted stuff together. We have the swivel chair thing that we're all very well aware of. And really, it's just about automation and insights. I actually changed this slide. The title of it used to say AI for IT, and that gave me an ice cream headache. So, but it's kind of a component of it. But really, we really need to be able to keep up with the speed of business. The word agile, which I think is a bit overused, but it's really the term for it, that we need to be able to bolt in and put stuff in quickly. Up is not the same as good, as we talked about earlier, right? Meaning that just because I'm connected doesn't mean the experience is right, doesn't mean my company is not at risk. we can take advantage of artificial intelligence and looking at some of this data. We were once starved for visibility. Now we're blinded by it. And then, we want to also build that in to ensure that we have value to our customers. We keep costs at a reasonable pace, and we keep businesses up and running so customers can do their thing.